Ever a long-term contract to sign. Supply is limited on this right now, so you better check out simplysafechris.com to order right now. That's simplysafechris.com to protect your home and family today. That's simplysafechris.com.
I've told you for years, I'm a customer of Valentine Roofing, and I know that they are the best roofing company in the Pacific Northwest. A lot of people replace their roof in the summertime, but now is the time you get the very best pricing on materials and the quickest turnaround. Get hold of Valentine Roofing. Avoid the summer rush. Get on the schedule now. Pay less. Get 3 bids. Just make sure one of them is Valentine Roofing. Go to valentineroof.com. That's valentineroof.com.
Every month, around 59 million people head to the airport and could use a ride with Uber. Great for Sarah. She's saving up for some travel of her own. Today, she's already dropped off her kids at school and will spend the afternoon dropping off folks at CPAC. Then cash out her earnings using Instant Pay. With Uber, Sarah can be her own boss and earn whenever she feels like it. Sign up with Uber and start earning. Visit uber.com/drive now. That's uber.com/drive now.
Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and it's getting a lot of you thinking about love. But here's an unfortunate reality. Some of us fall out of love with our current career path. Why don't I love you? Let me count the ways. Few chances of advancement, low pay, lack of job security. The list goes on and on. If you've fallen out of love with your career, considering falling in love with a new one in computer programming, we live in an area where tech jobs are booming. With these skills in or out of the tech industry, you're going to give you a ton of job security. Learn to code in 20 weeks with Code Fellows, Seattle's premier code school. To find out if coding is right for you, check out Code 101. It's only $99. You're not ready to make that kind of commitment? Do not worry. You can hang out with Code Fellows at their New Year, New Career Happy Hour this Thursday at the Code Fellows campus in Seattle. It's free to attend, and you will learn how Code Fellows can help you fall in love with a new career. To learn more, go to codefellows.com/Cairo. That's codefellows.com/Cairo.
I'm Bobby Wagner, and I can tell you firsthand that this office is an amazing defense. Trust me, I know. Stop freaking and call Beacon. We'll heat you right up. 1-800-FREAK.
Cairo Radio 97.3 FM, streaming on every device from the Carter Super Studios. Stories that matter, opinions that bring perspective. This is where you find out why. KIRO FM, Tacoma, Seattle.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Simmons Beauty Rest.
I'm Steve Caith, and it's been a morning of sharp ups and downs on Wall Street on the heels of yesterday's major sell-off. Right now, the Dow is down 37 points. Business analyst Jill Schlesinger says investors need a seatbelt.
This is going to be a volatile market, and that breaks with a near 2-year stretch where it has been very calm. These kinds of days are more common than what we have seen in the past 2 years. This weird, tranquil period where we had very few ups or downs, that's rare. So what I think is important to remember is that we're likely to see more volatility.
With the clock ticking toward a possible government shutdown later this week, the House votes on a short-term spending measure later today. Defense Secretary Mattis told Congress this morning he wants a long-term solution, not a continuing resolution.
We will not maintain our ships at sea with the proper balance between operations and time in port for maintenance. We will ground aircraft due to a lack of maintenance and spare parts.
Well, some along the East Coast got warnings of a tsunami this morning on their phones, but the National Weather Service says that was a mistake during a system test. One of football's big names not only was on the losing end of the Super Bowl, he also suffered a setback at home.
Police are not saying exactly what was taken from Rob Gronkowski's home or when the robbery might have happened. But Foxborough Police Chief William Baker says the break-in did happen while Gronk was at the Super Bowl in Minnesota.
It was while he was away. We're not going to release the details of what we know about the time and day that the incident occurred, but it did occur while Mr. Gronkowski was away.
The chief says as long as there is a viable investigation, it doesn't benefit to release information about what was stolen and that the suspects know what was taken. Chief Baker calls a break-in unpleasant no matter who the victim is, and it has a profound impact on anyone to have your personal space breached. Ben Parker for CBS News, Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Well, President Trump says it's disgraceful that a person who was in the U.S. illegally killed Colts linebacker Edwin Jackson. The man who had been twice deported was allegedly driving drunk in Indianapolis when Jackson and another man were struck and killed Sunday morning. Overseas, CBS's Vicky Barker reports on a British court decision that rejected a bid to drop the arrest warrant against the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange.
His lawyers had argued that the 2012 arrest warrant had lost its purpose after Sweden dropped its attempt to prosecute the WikiLeaks founder over 2 sexual assault complaints. But the court here in London disagreed. Since the UK has refused to guarantee it won't extradite Assange to the US, Assange's long sojourn in Ecuador's embassy looks like going longer still.
Wall Street, the Dow is down 76 points. This is CBS News.
Beauty rest. When you sleep better, you run farther, lift harder, bike longer. But to sleep better, you need a beauty rest. Find a retailer at beautyrestretailers.com.
How much a group of Seattle homeowners will have to pay for secretly improving their view? That's after Cairo Radio real-time traffic. Sully?
And we're still in recovery mode in the Central Sound here after earlier crashes we've had across the board. Still dealing with elevated travel times of 20 minutes or more in certain locations like 405 southbound between Everett and Bellevue. That's still running in an hour and a half. That's a 30-minute delay over normal. Everett to Seattle, by comparison, is an hour and 15 minutes. We're still dealing with the slowing on northbound I-5, trying to get basically from Mounts Road all the way up through JBLM after an earlier crash there. That's about a 15-minute delay through the area. The rest of our freeways are pretty well handling business. If you're way south of the Seattle area, about 80 miles south of us, you're trying to get down to, say, the Portland area, we're still dealing with this crash that has southbound I-5 blocked as you get down near Rush Road. There's off and on a detour right around it. The backups around it are not bad, about a mile and a half. This report brought to you by the UPS Store. The mailbox, more than just a box, accepting packages from all shipping carriers. Notify you of arrival, give a real street address, provide 24-hour access.
Cairo Radio News, 97.3 FM.
A Federal Way middle school teacher caught on video shoving a student. Now parents want him punished.
They're not enforcing policy, and so it's driving these teachers to this point to where our children are being assaulted. If I was to go down the street and assault a child, I'd be in jail right now, and that's the problem.
This all started with a schedule mix-up. Apparently, the teacher told the student he was in the wrong classroom and for some reason took the 13-year-old's phone. When the teen came back later to get his phone, the two scuffled. The teacher is seen on video shoving him to the ground. Seattle has again fined a group of homeowners who sought to improve their views. Last year, some homeowners who secretly cut down trees were fined $440,000. Now another group who cut down trees without a permit have been fined another $360,000. The issue for the city, the trees often act as ground stabilizers to prevent landslides. Congestion backing up our region's carpool lanes has the Department of Transportation trying to offer ways to solve traffic there. Cairo Radio's Carolyn Osario has details.
The report says traffic in our region's HOV lanes is up by more than 22%. In fact, long stretches of carpool lanes are not meeting the standard of 45 miles per hour 90% of the time. The fix? Opening more shoulders for driving like the state did on 405 through Bothell, and maybe bigger fines for HOV violators.
The Senate Transportation Committee right now soliciting recommendations to try and fix those HOV lanes. Some roads still underwater this morning because of river flooding. The Snoqualmie and Snohomish are receding now, but the White River will stay at flood stage until at least Thursday. Your forecast for today, we've got convergence zone showers this morning. Later on this afternoon, the showers will be kept to Everett and the north. Highs will be in the low 50s. Right now, 45 degrees outside the Carter Subaru studios. I'm Colleen O'Brien.
On demand with the Cairo Radio app. Cairo Radio News, 97.3 FM. This hour of Seattle's Morning News brought to you by Wilcox Family Farms. And coming up, we meet an attorney defending the detainees at Guantanamo who says we ought to know who they are and how they're treated.
The more you confront people with these facts, the more uncomfortable they become and the more outraged you get.
More from my conversation with human rights attorney Alka Pradhan. Colleen tells us about a woman known for her random acts of kindness, now needing a little kindness herself. And there's a government shutdown looming on Thursday, I guess because we enjoyed the last one so much. David Farenthal joins us from the Washington Post. First, though, choke points. Chris is here with a look at the latest action in Olympia to make the drive to work easier. And we start with the Tacoma Narrows Bridge.
Yeah, Tacoma Narrows drivers have people going to bat for them finally in Olympia. because there was no toll increase on the bridge last year, but there are concerns that they're going to be ones again this year, and they're constantly going to be dealing with kind of an unstable idea of how long it's going to be before they raise the toll or not raise the toll. And here's what's happening on the bridge to cause this. There just aren't enough people using the bridge to meet the forecast. For some reason, it just hasn't quite gotten the revenue that they had expected. And so the money to pay back the construction bonds is based on that usage, and so they're trying to figure out what they can do to obviously pay back what they owe on these bonds. And Senator Jan Angel, who is from the Port Orchard area, says she's seen models with tolling over $10 in the future if that money keeps coming up short.
I found that the tolls could go up into double digits later down the road here, and we can't afford that.
Senator Angel is pushing a bill that would freeze the toll rate at $5.25 by taking a loan from the transportation fund to try to make sure that they stay in a stable situation.
We know that there's not going to be more money out there to try to find to cover these things, and I think this is totally reasonable. This is a godsend to us.
The downside to this lower and stable toll rate over the future is that bridge users were likely going to have to pay tolls for much longer, something that obviously commuters don't like, because they were supposed to end when they paid off the bonds. So we'll see what happens with that. There's also an interesting plan in Olympia right now that would fundamentally change how transportation projects are funded. Right now, as you know, the gas tax is where the state gets its money for roads and bridges. And we've been reporting for years that the gas tax isn't going as far as it used to, with people, of course, driving much more fuel-efficient cars. That's why the state's looking at charging you per mile instead of the gas tax as that funding mechanism. But Senator Phil Fortunato has a different idea entirely. He wants to use the 6.5% sales tax that's currently charged on every retail car sale and dedicate that to transportation. Right now, that money just kind of disappears into the general fund. It can be used for anything. He believes that using the sales tax revenue is a much more stable way.
Rather than come back here in 4, 5, 6 years and say, oh, we have this catastrophic thing where we don't have enough gas tax revenue to pay for the existing bond payments for transportation, that's what this bill does, is we have a controlled event, we have a planned event that we can manage.
Of course, he has an R next to his name, so I'm not sure how far this bill is going to go with the D-controlled legislation.
So what about this report I'm hearing that Everett has the worst traffic in the nation? What does that mean?
Yeah, you have to be careful how you read those headlines, because you're going to see a bunch of them today saying that it is the worst in the nation. And let's not kid ourselves. Traffic is terrible in Everett, and it is every day. But once you dive into the numbers, and this is all coming from a report from Kirkland-based INRIX, which, you know, crunches numbers, looks at traffic data, whatnot. Everett has the worst congestion in the nation of cities of its same size. So in terms of a city of outside the major kind of looking at the cities, it has the worst of a city of its size. It's the 30th worst in the nation, which is still terrible, but it's the 3rd worst in Washington, behind Seattle and Tacoma, of course. Here's what INRIX found. It's that Everett drivers are stuck in congestion about 28% of the time. And again, what's driving this deterioration? Well, it's the things that we've been talking to you about for years. I mean, there are 10,000 people a year moving to Snohomish County, so you have explosive growth, and the roads can't handle it. You have 4 miles of freeway without any exits into and out of the Marysville. So between Marysville and Everett, which backs up I-5 every single day, especially in the northbound direction. And you also go from 5 lanes down to 3 in Everett. So you're losing capacity. Then, of course, you have the on and off ramps to Highway 2, which can't handle the capacity there either. So it just makes sense.
Let me ask you this. Does anybody ever publish a list of the neighborhoods which have the least congestion? So that for people who are looking for a place to live, instead of all the places they shouldn't be living, you could tell them, here, if you move here, you'll have a great commute.
Well, I think what you have to do when you do that is when you buy your home, go there on a weekday morning or afternoon to see what the traffic, don't go on a Saturday or Sunday.
I've advised that for years.
I know you.
But nobody ever does it. So isn't there a way to actually, nobody keeps a list of those?
Well, I'm sure they probably do, and it's more anecdotal than not. But what you have to realize is the way King County has forced everybody out because of the ridiculous prices here. I mean, for instance, we moved here, 12 years ago? Yeah. 14 years ago now. We couldn't afford a house as a young family in the Seattle, King County area. We had to move up into South Everett. Now that same couple, that's me, my wife Holly and Tommy, young family, 14 years now, moving forward, they're moving to Lake Stevens. They're moving to Marysville and Arlington. That's how far they're being pushed out.
Farther and farther.
That's just, or they're moving to Puyallup. They're moving to, through Auburn and whatnot. I mean, that's
what about the Kitsap Peninsula?
Well, people are moving there too, certainly. And when we get more fast ferry service moving around from Kitsap
I hear
Transit,
the bridge is practically empty.
Well, yeah, but you still have to pay a toll, and you're not sure what it's going to be tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, that's just the reality. Is people are being forced further and further away. I know in the Seattle utopia, inside the bubble of the Seattle City Council, everybody works and lives in the same block. That's just not reality. I'm sorry, it's not. When the economy is moving like this, people who can't afford to live in the city but work in the city have to go somewhere.
Thank you, Chris. Chris is back in
Off my soapbox now.
No, but you'll be back on it soon enough. First, though, it's Nick's turn with a look at the weather. It is 45 at the Carter Subaru Studios. You're sticking with the dry weekend?
Sticking with the dry weekend. All we have to get through this morning is some mist and some drizzle, and then I think this afternoon a few light showers, mainly north of Everett. I don't think you'll see a lot besides that. I do expect mostly cloudy skies, and we go low 50s. Tomorrow looks mainly dry as well, maybe a little bit of mist or drizzle in the morning, and then partly to mostly cloudy and temps low 50s. Now, Thursday you see some more widespread showers. It will not make the flooding situation worse, and I think a lot of central Puget Sound won't see much thanks to the rain shadow. A few showers Friday and cooling off. Snow levels will come down below the passes on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, partly sunny and dry. I'd say at least in the upper 40s, so a little cooler than what we're going to see today. And then if you were to look beyond that into Monday, I see just a couple of showers. So if you really want to get outside, if you have plans to do something, if you just want to work in the yard, whatever it is, you should have a couple of days this weekend.
Very nice, thank you.
Sure.
Traffic is brought to you by Budget Batteries. Here's Chris.
And we're still in recovery mode across the board. For those of you trying to get from Olympia up into the JBLM area, we're still dealing with the remnants of an earlier crash there on that I-5 corridor, so you're losing some time as you try to get up through DuPont, but it is easy. Then you get up through the Tacoma Mall area, it's pretty normal there, and then from Federal Way to Seattle, it's really not that bad of a drive. I mean, you've got some slowing, working your way up the usual locations, but a Federal Way to Seattle drive of just over an hour is not that bad of a situation. Still have a little bit of slowing in westbound 512 as you get towards Highway 7, that's Pacific Ave, over to I-5, but the eastbound slowing has calmed down pretty nicely getting through Puyallup and then working your way up through Auburn. The Valley Freeway is still running at about 50 minutes. Coming out of the north end, we've actually shaved a few minutes as well. We're looking at an hour and 15 minutes from Everett to Bellevue and an hour and 10 from Everett to Seattle, so we are trending in the right direction there. The lake bridges, however, both of the directions of I-90 across Mercer Island are pretty slow. What's unusual is the eastbound slowing there across Mercer Island, and both directions of 520 are pretty slow through the Montlake area. Looking at the drive out of Issaquah, also seeing some slowing up past Westlake Sam Parkway. Now, if you're continuing on further south, say going 80 miles south of us here in Seattle to head down, say, to Portland today, we're still working this pretty significant crash south of the Chehalis area. I-5 southbound has all the lanes are blocked, but you're being routed off exits and back on exits to get around this as best you can. The backup is not bad considering the freeway is closed, about a mile and a half in the southbound direction. Northbound direction also about a mile and a half because the Jersey barrier actually got pushed into the northbound lanes. This report brought to you by Budget Batteries, offering you the best service, lowest prices on batteries. Free battery testing by Skilled Techs, 11 Puget Sound locations, budgetbattery.com.
Dow Jones back in negative territory once again, now down 151, 118, You get the picture. Coming up, lawmakers scrambling again to come up with a plan to keep the government running past Thursday. David Farenthal joins us live from the Washington Post up next.
When water seeps into your basement, you lose sleep every time it storms, but you could lose a lot more. This is former Attorney General Rob McKenna. Local Northwest business Terra Firma Foundation Systems can help waterproof your basement. Water in your basement ruins everything it touches, from carpets and walls to your most valuable possessions. But just because we live in one of the wettest parts of the country doesn't mean you have to live in a water-damaged home. Since 2005, Terra Firma has helped thousands of Northwest homeowners keep their homes dry in any storm. They are our region's only BBB-accredited foundation repair company I recommend, and their experience, honesty, and thousands of happy customers make them the trusted leader in waterproofing homes. Don't delay. If you live in King, Pierce, or Thurston counties, schedule a free home inspection by calling Terra Firma Foundation Systems at 866-486-7196. Again, call 866-486-7196 or web search TERRAFIRMA Foundation Systems.
Nobody goes into retirement hoping to spend time in a nursing home, becoming a burden on loved ones, or to lose assets to uncovered care costs. But most retirees do. Not because they couldn't have planned to avoid these results, but because they didn't have the knowledge. Learn how to bring your health, housing, finance, family, and legal hopes into one comprehensive life plan. See Life Planning Coach Rajiv Nagaich. Take it from world champion football coach Mike Holmgren.
In retirement, we need to make sure our healthcare, housing, financial, and legal teams are all working toward the same goal. Enlist the coach you can. Life Planning Coach Rajiv Nagaich.
See Rajiv Nagaich at Aging Options Live this Tuesday in Issaquah, Wednesday in Tacoma, Thursday in Linwood, and February 10th in Mount Vernon. To register for these free events, visit agingoptions.com.
Be ready for the season ahead. Know your options. Visit agingoptions.com.
18 past 8 o'clock, Seattle's Morning News. We now take you deep inside the Beltway. And David Farenthold of the Washington Post. David, I'm just seeing on CNN that the president is inclined to approve the release of the Democratic rebuttal memo. Remind us, what is it we're trying to determine here by reading these dueling memos?
So this all goes back to this application to surveil, basically, a guy named Carter Page that the FBI had been looking after for a long time because of his contacts with Russia. Carter Page, became an advisor, sort of an informal advisor to the Trump campaign in 2016. So all the Republican memo, which we dealt with last week, was Devin Nunes, the Republican head of the House Intelligence Committee, accusing the FBI of somehow sort of gaining a surveillance warrant on this guy without properly disclosing that they were maybe getting some information from Democrat-friendly sources. Now, that memo was, as you recall, the subject of days and days of debate. It got released. It was kind of a nothing burger. In the end, it didn't really prove anything. This Democratic memo is sort of a counterpoint to that, saying that Nunes's memo cherry-picked information, was biased and incorrect. It seems like it's designed to rebut something that maybe everybody's kind of forgotten about.
Now, I read in the Washington Examiner this morning that there was a redacted part of the dossier which does mention the Clinton connection. And the implication is, well, the FBI isn't reading memos. The FBI was reading the source material, the dossier itself, and the dossier itself mentions the Democratic connection. So if that's true, then the FBI did know from the get-go where the information came from, and nevertheless thought it credible, at least for a while.
Right, and the key is, did they conceal that from the judge who gave this federal surveillance warrant? You know, did they not tell the judge that the origin of this information, which they had checked out and found to be credible, that the origin was in politics? And apparently they did tell the judge. And so it really, the memo came and went, the Republican memo came and went, without really raising any questions about what the FBI had done at all. Except what it did was create this sort of big cloud of suspicion and confusion about something that Republicans are hoping to sort of extend to the Mueller investigation of President Trump.
Okay, and Carter Page, what makes him so important? Because Trump has said that this guy was really not in any way a part of the I guess he was part of the campaign. He was a supporter, but was not at all instrumental in running it.
That's right. The president, Carter Page was announced on a list of foreign policy advisors, and there's a picture of Trump and Page in a meeting, a much larger meeting, not just the two of them, at the Trump Hotel sometime in 2016. I haven't seen any evidence to say that Carter Page was some instrumental figure in the campaign itself, but the Trump people did announce him as part of their team. Yeah. So I think part of the Mueller investigation is trying to figure out exactly what Carter Page meant. Certainly Page has strong ties to Moscow. There's a lot of reasons to be suspicious of him that way. But what was his relationship to the actual workings of the Trump campaign, we still don't know.
Okay, so we are now once again running up against a shutdown deadline. It is Thursday at midnight. Just a few weeks ago, when the government actually did shut down momentarily, immigration was the sticking point. And here's what the Senate Majority Leader said at the time.
This immigration debate will have a level playing field at the outset.
Okay, so there apparently is still no immigration deal. Are we going to go through this whole shutdown charade again, do you think?
I don't think it'll play out the same way this time. I mean, I can't predict to you how it's going to get solved, but I think the Democrats realized that it was a mistake